You guys can feel it, but I'm feeling something now. Yeah, you don't want me to think nothing. So, as I said, alluded to at the beginning of the service, this will likely be, next week will likely be our last one here. Not 100% sure of that, but we're pretty sure. We may be at the park, but we're gonna be somewhere. Anyway, the district, just to let you know, is excited about where we're heading. They're so excited that they kind of call us, we're kind of a pet project with them right now because we're doing something that hasn't been done in a long time and maybe not done quite like this ever for us and for the Nazarene district. And they're looking at what we're doing with a lot of hope. Because for years they were telling the churches to get out of the inner city because there's no money to be made in the inner city. I don't mean that in a negative way, but inner city work breaks churches. It really does. You can't go down there if you don't have a passion. If you're not sold completely in the understanding and vision that God wants to do something through our church. And so they are wanting to keep track of what we're doing and how we're doing it because they want to do this all over the Atlantic District if they can. They want to go back into the towns and hook up with Souls Harbor and plant one of these things wherever it'll work. And so they're using us as kind of like guinea pigs. That's okay. I've been down that road before. And we're excited about what God's going to do. And we know without a doubt. He keeps asking me, is this God's will for your life and for this church? I said, absolutely. Absolutely. Without a doubt. And the fact that I see so many, so much of God's hand in this that I would be a fool to go any other way but the way that we're going. So, anyway, any other thoughts?
I just usually talk about this morning, and I don't say this to say that Steve did this, but I feel it has to be said. He got up this morning and he said, I have to go to town. I thought, we really have to go to this. He said, you know, it's raining outside. I've got umbrellas, ponchos in the garage, and he said, it's raining, so I'm going to town. And I'm, okay, yeah, I'll go to town. So anyway, he did, and it's not only did he get these out, but he found other people who have been serving with us on the streets checking on the homeless.
Yeah.
And so, these people on the streets always are looking over their shoulders thinking the worst, right?
Right.
They're protecting them.
Right.
Now they're looking over their shoulder and they're seeing people reaching out to them.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be
Yeah.
giving them something.
It breathes fire into people's lives. When, you just go and do it. And if it's going to work, there will be people behind you. If it doesn't, go do it anyway. Like, a lot of people, they stop after they see nobody's following them and they think, oh, well, this can't be, and I go, well, just, you know what? Don't go with me, still I will follow, right? And I mean, we sing that, but do we mean it, right? And obviously, like I say, when you put value and respect into people's lives, they give it back. And that's what we see happening. We could sit and talk about this all day about what we see happening in the town of Truro. And with it comes great opposition, but armor up. We're going to war. Simple as that. You're not in for battle, go find another church. Simple as that. You don't like mess and mud and dirt and crud, junk. We're going to have great services. And we're going to have a great time. But it's going to get dirty. That's okay. Because I got dirty clothes. I still got work clothes. Shauna is fired up over the fact that the town does not like us. And she takes great offense in that. And so there, apparently she said, Dad, just post this. Okay, so apparently I'm going to read it for the second time. Revival Hour, praying for Truro and the region. Come join us. Revival Hour, we're at Calvary Pentecostal Church, the one that we used to have down here. When? Saturday, August the 11th, time from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Apparently there's some guy coming in that is burden for Truro, and he's going to lead this thing. And he's contacted Shauna, and Shauna's going to get involved in this. And we've been told, pardon me? Yeah. And we've been told that, on certain terms, that if we applied for the same kind of things that the gay pride parade got, we won't get it. And I want to tell you, I don't care for that very much, and we're going to get it. We're going to die trying, because we feel that we've always been the ones that stick up for the ones with no voice. Guess who doesn't have a voice anymore? We lost our voice. We had a strong voice when we broke slavery. That was because of Lincoln and his belief system that man was created equal. That was God's doing, and he used the church to do it. And now the church doesn't have a voice anymore. Yeah, well, we're going to get one. So start practicing.
We had a good friend of ours, a musician from Truro, local guy. Our host last night dropped in to bring a gas jug back. Anyways, he ended up playing music for 3 or 4 hours. And he's written quite a few gospel songs, actually. But anyways, he was asking what was going on. We kind of brought up what happened to us singing our worship music uptown. Well, being a musician, and he's played uptown. He took it personally.
Yeah.
He said they can't do that. So that's what we said. Well, he did. Well, show me the email. Show me. So I'm showing him, and he sang some of the songs, and I said, John, you can't sing that one uptown.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? I said, because you have the blood of Christ in that song, and blood on the cross.
Yeah.
He said, well, I wrote those songs. Those are my songs. I said, you can't play them uptown. He said, well, see about that. He said, next time they hire me uptown at the square or at the farmer's market or wherever they hire me, I'm going to sing them songs. So he typed up a big long letter. One went to the newspaper editor, and I think one went to town. As we're sitting there talking, he said,
bring your claymore.
it ain't over. He
Lord.
said, this isn't just your battle.
Yeah.
It's our battle, because
Right.
he's a musician. He appreciates the words in his songs. And he said they have no right, that lady has no,
I was told we don't
Right.
have freedom of religion.
she had no jurisdiction to censor music.
Right. Right. And that's like we're being manhandled by people that have no authority. So we're going to have to climb the ladder until we find the person that's saying no. I think we know the person that's saying no.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a meeting. And it's not over with. We're going to fight the fight. We really are. And the reason I say that is because I'm preaching on, we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses that died to get us where we are. And if we don't die to move this church forward, there'll be no church. Y'all read the back of the book. Y'all read Revelation, and y'all think that we're going to be saved by the splitting of the earth, the sky, and Jesus is coming back. So we're all just going to lay down and wait until he comes here. And I'm telling you, that's the wrong thing to do. It is the wrong thing to do to wait until Jesus splits that sky, because we know we're going to win in the end. So it really doesn't matter what happens to us now. Absolutely it does. And I think some of the church has got the wrong attitude that we can't do anything anymore, this, that, and for whatever reason we became tree huggers. And I don't know why we became that. I think somebody said, Jesus said, turn the other cheek, means that we don't do, that's not what that verse means. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between being rightly slapped in the face and wrongly slapped in the face. And we don't take wrongly slapped in the face lying down. And the church has been being slapped in the face, and we're thinking that we have no rights and we can't say anything because, we're supposed to love people. Well, you know what? The disciples loved people, but for some unknown reason to me, they carried swords, because in the garden, Peter wielded his. People said, yeah, but Jesus didn't want him to do that. Yeah, well, Jesus let him carry his sword, and I'm sure it wasn't for cutting his meat. Because I seen the sword that was in here the other week, and I ain't cutting no meat with that. Swords don't cut meat. Swords are for protection. Don't ever think that we were meant to be passive. That we were supposed to lay down our life that way. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, enough said. Time? 10 o'clock Saturday, next Saturday, be there for that. Testimony again. Everything's the same, except until we get fired up in another couple weeks, and then all going to change. Then I'm going to be doing slide after slide after slide, like that. All right, everybody cool? Won't keep you long. We're going to Brittany's afterwards, barbecue and that. You're all welcome. Here we go. Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses. If you've been in Sunday school for any length of time, you know some of the things about those people. You knew they were God-fearing men. You know that a lot of where we are today, that was some of the foundation of the Old Testament. Some of the guys in the Old Testament who laid down their lives and had followed God no matter what. And kind of like what we're doing now. They were marching through foreign countries. They were doing God's will, whatever it was. You know, there's some who struggled, but they all kept going. And their names that you'll know. Enoch didn't die. He actually walked with God. We know what happened to Noah, right? Some of you seen the show, the movies, Abraham. You know those names. And they're foundational names, right? These are names that to a Jewish person, they absolutely knew when you mentioned Abraham, who he was and what he was up to. Listen to what it says. All these people that I was just talking about, were still living by faith when they died. That's cool, right? I mean, that's our dream, is that we stay in the march, we stay in the fight, we stay in the war, we stay on path in the marathon. He says that when they died, they did not receive the things promised. Not everything that we set out to do, we're going to finish. What is happening between Souls Harbor and the Nazarene Church is but the beginning of what is going to happen down the road. We are on the front of this voyage, on this journey. That's what we are. We don't know what the outcome. We don't know what will happen 5, 10, 15, 100 years from now. But all we know, and all they knew, was that I got to get up in the morning, and I got to put my hand on the plow, and I got to look forward, and I got to go that way. That's all they knew. Some of them never seen, it said. They never received the things that they were promised. Abraham, he said, I will make your offspring as numerous as the sands on the seashore. He never saw that. And in fact, at one stage of the game, he was about to take his own son's life because he believed that was what God wanted. The very thing that God told him was going to be a seed through his son, he was going to kill him because he believed that's what God wanted him to do. And God stopped him. It says, they only saw them and they welcomed them from a distance. Admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth, people who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. A lot of times, we're constantly looking around where we've been and what other people are doing. And sometimes it causes us to stumble in the place that God would have us to go. Lot was told, his wife was told, don't look back, no matter what happens, don't look back. And we all know what happened to Lot's wife. She turned into a pillow of salt because she didn't obey what she was told. Don't look back. The Bible says if you put your hand to the plow and you look back, you're not fit for service. Right? And so there's this idea that a lot of people get involved in ministries and then they start doubting and looking and wondering and remembering. A lot of people choose churches based on music, comfortability, like how comfortable can I be when I get there? Can I find a place to sit and not be seen and not be heard? A lot of people look for things that the easy way out. And they keep thinking about better times and better days. I could have done this, I should have been doing that. And they always are stuck in everywhere else but where they need to be. when you get your head in the game and when everything comes together, what a powerful weapon you can be. So just remember that none of these guys that were pillars in the church ever really seen the fulfillment of what it was that they started. And you may be a starter. You may be something who wants to start a ministry in this church. And you may labor over this, and then all of a sudden, bam, it takes off and you're dead. But it was because you persevered. If only they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have opportunity. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them. Here we go. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and sin that so easily entangles. You know, there's all kinds of witnesses that we don't know about. Ones that have died to bring us to where we are today. I want to get to a couple that maybe you would be interested in hearing about. You know, most of the disciples, all but one were killed, martyred. But listen to this, Polycarp. Anybody know who Polycarp is?
Yeah. Disciple of John.
Yeah, disciple of John. Right? Around 155 to 167 AD, he was tried to burn him at the stake. Couldn't burn him. So they stabbed him. Do you know who he was? Anybody got a Bible? He's likely responsible for gathering up the New Testament. Now, if there was no Polycarp, there's a good chance there'd be no disciple, or no Bible. God had a purpose for him. And he likely never knew what impact he really would have 2,000 years later. We pick up our Bible and we think nothing about how we got it. But the person that was likely responsible for bringing most of the New Testament letters together was likely Polycarp. And he was martyred. Anybody know who Wycliffe is? Wycliffe Bible? Known as the morning star of the Reformation, John Wycliffe was the 14th century theologian, 14th century. He is probably best remembered as the translator of scriptures. He believed the Bible should be available to people in every tongue and translated the Bible into common English. He was persecuted for his stand against the Catholic Church. While he was not burned at the stake as a martyr, his persecution extended beyond his death. His body was exhumed and burned. That's how much they hated him. And an anti-Wycliffe statute in 1401 brought persecution to his followers. John Huss, Czech priest who burned at the stake for heresy against the doctrine of the Catholic Church. He fought against the doctrine of Eucharist, some of the Catholic teachings, and he was martyred in 1415. William Tyndale wrote the Bible, translated it. He also took a stand against the Catholic Church. At that time, the Catholic Church was pretty bad. And if you opposed them, they didn't take kindly to that. They killed you. And he was because he stood up against King Henry VIII. He died. Dietrich Bonhoeffer died in 1945. You know who he was? He got fed up with what Hitler was doing. He opposed Hitler. And 2 weeks before the Americans broke into his prison camp and set him free, he was hanged. Because he did not like what the Germans were doing to the Jews, and he took a stand. And it cost him his life. Jim Elliot, 4 missionary friends. You know, Jim Elliot was flying around Africa, saw a tribe that nobody could get to. They started a ministry by dropping stuff into these people and having a ministry with these people. He decided it was time to go down and put feet on the ground. Got down, thought they would be maybe well received because they were dropping food to them. As soon as they put feet on the ground, 5 of them were murdered. And they were killed.
That was in South America.
Yeah, South America. Later on. It's there. Keep going. The wife
went back.
Went back.
And those people who killed him were saved.
Yeah. The wife went back in after that, and they were. And it goes on to, I mean, this one quoted 10 people or talked to 10 people. Literally, there are thousands that die every year. And the way you die is that you take a stand for something you believe in, and that you do something, you know, in North America, we kept saying, oh, don't matter what kind of stand you take here. All of a sudden, we're realizing that when we go down to the heart of our town, that we take a stand, and they're telling us we can't do anymore. So at some point, we've got to go back down there and take another stand. And likely before the end of the year, we're going to do that. And it may be to the point that we create enough of a row that maybe we're going to be jailed. Likely won't be jailed long, but...
Well, you did Tommy Run
Huh?
over in England.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I'm not trying to say that we should be going around causing trouble, but at some point, we're going to pass something on. This is what the sermon's about. Let's get to the meat of this. We're going to pass something on to our children. Some of these young ones that are sitting here, certainly, you know, a little fellow sitting at the back, you know, and we're going to pass something on. And I'm telling you what I don't want to pass on. I don't want to pass on a lukewarm, pathetic church. I really don't. I don't want the young man to grow up seeing that we back down at every fight because we were afraid of what might happen to us. I don't want him to get to a church and see that we have no passion, no purity, and no love, and no obedience. I'm not interested in that. And if we don't start doing something about it, that's really what we're handing down to these kids. Because the closets that some people came out of 10 or 20 years ago, we'll be going back in those same closets. And we won't be telling nobody we're Christian. And it'll be an embarrassment. And then the same doors that were opened will be shut if we don't do something about it. So listen to what it says. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Now, you know, I could sit here and talk about all the sins in the church and all that problems, and I preach a lot about that, but there's one sin that I really want to talk about today, and that's the sin of disobedience. Because that's really what snares us. Not only does it ensnare me, but it'll snare everybody that comes after me if I'm disobedient. If I'm not preaching the way I should be preaching, if I'm not teaching what I should be teaching, if I should not lead the way I should be leading, then I'm ensnaring everyone in this church. Now, having said that, if you guys don't pull up your socks, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but the truth of the matter is, you all have children, you all have families, right? Your kids are coming after you, and they see exactly what you do. And every sin that you do, they will magnify. It's the natural form of sin. Sin wants to magnify, it wants to grow, and it wants to infect. That's what sin does. So when the kids see mom and dad fighting, you can bet that they're going to think that that's normal. And then they think, and I've had it said to me, fighting is normal in families. And I said, no, it's not. No, it's not normal. It's normal in the family in the world. But it's not normal in our families. It shouldn't be normal in our families. And it shouldn't be acceptable. It should be, let's talk about this. Let's not fight about it. Let's communicate about this. Let's figure this out. But let's not fight and call each other names and start a ruckus in the house where kids look at that and they go, okay, right? We don't want the kids to go into our homes and see stuff that we think is okay to do, and then they take upon it themselves. It's okay for mom and dad to do that, and it's going to be okay for me because my mom and dad were upstanding people in the church. And so they'll get there, and all of a sudden we'll go, well, what happened? Well, what happened was they didn't have the same restraint that mom and dad did. And what we think is okay. See, I'm not doing and not doing things to protect myself. I'm trying to protect my family. I don't want my family or my church family, see that I do things or I don't do things that's going to lead them astray. Well, Terry does it. I live my life concerned about you people and my family. I really don't consider my life that important to me, that my needs always have to be met, regardless of your feelings or your addictions or your habits. I don't care about that. And therefore, if you go to my fridge, you'll see a bunch of stuff that I don't care about your addiction and your habit. You know, we're going to be going on the street pretty soon. And when these people come into our home and they see that you guys do stuff or don't do stuff, or you're this and that and that, you're all got self-control, and it's a wonderful thing. I'm telling you, once somebody sees you do something, it's out of your hands. And so there's all kinds of sin that ensnares us and traps us, that wants to devour us. I mean, that's what sin does. It wants to be multiplied. It wants to divide and multiply throughout this world. And when the sin comes into the church, and what I'm talking about is the sin of disobedience. When there is a sin of disobedience in the church, then it just magnifies itself and it takes the church where it shouldn't be. We need to listen to God. We need to be obedient to God. And when we're disobedient, what we're doing is saying, myself is more important than what God wants. So we always got to be cautious that when we're walking this walk, that we are making paths straight for these guys sitting right here. Listen, I got big feet, big strong legs. I can crawl over a lot of boulders to get to the end of the road. But these guys, come on. That little fella sitting back there, right? You know, I mean, we can navigate, you know, some of our lives, but some of these kids will never be able to navigate. And so it's important that we understand that if we're going to pass something on, I want to pass on a church that is pure, not perfect. My goal is perfection. I believe in Christian perfection, but come on, you know, I want to pass a church that is pure. I remember a missionary came to our church one day, David, can't think of his last name, David. Anyway, he said they get all kinds of stuff sent to them from North America to where he was. You know, one of them were used tea bags. They were only used once. Really? And clothes that got stains on them and wore out. I go to my house, I get a brand new coach, paid $1,500 for it. I got that beat-out, rag, torn, old piece of junky thing. You know who's going to get it? Church is going to get it. I ripped up this old mauve shag carpet out of our living room. It was rough. I haven't done that, but just play with it for a bit. Mauve carpet, put it down in the youth room. Not good enough for me, but it's good enough for Jesus. You know, we sometimes just think our hand-me-downs is good enough for somebody else. And so we keep refreshing ourselves with new stuff, and we keep handing down all this old stuff. But what are we going to hand down when it comes to our church? What are you handing down to your children when it comes to your faith? Because your faith will be directly handed down to your children. And they'll see the way mom and dad acted, and the way the church acted, the way we interact together. They'll see that. And I don't want to hand down this busted down, broken up church. I really don't. I want to hand them as pure a church as I can find. I want them to be able to find strength here. I want them to be able to find encouragement here. I want them to be able to find friends here, advice, teaching. I want them to find God here. And in order to do that, we all pull together in the same direction, because this is it. We're handing down this as a body of believers, not me. The reason I'm stepping out and joining in with the Nazarene district, and where we're going to become likely either the Upper Room Nazarene Mission or the Nazarene Upper Room Mission or something, is because when I'm done, I don't want them to say, well, there's no more Terry Dryden's church. Terry died. There's nothing left. It was created on the back of the Dryden family, and here we stand. They are gone. There's nothing here. I'm not doing this to leave a legacy for my name. I'm doing this to leave a legacy for Christ Jesus, the Church of Truro.
Amen.
Because quite frankly, there's a lot of jacked up churches in this town that's not doing squat about what's going on out there. And God called me out. If I've heard His voice, I heard at that time, He said, come out from among them and start unto me a new work. And we did. And now we're able to take a denomination that I think is at a transition in their life where they're thinking the same way we are, and they got leaders that think the same way that I do, which means they're right. Well, anyway, we're in agreement. And I believe it's time for us to do this, so that we're leaving something more than just the Dryden church. This is just Terry's church, and as long as Terry's healthy, he gets healthy. So I'm not about to do that. So as I get 57, now I'm going to be 58 next year, I'm starting to think, what am I going to leave? What does the church look like that I started? You guys wouldn't be here if God hadn't called me to be doing what I'm doing. And when I'm gone, I want y'all still to be here, or at least, you know, these guys and your little kids can be running around in here. You know? So that's what we want to do. So it says, let us run with perseverance the race that has been marked out for us. Each of us here is called to a race. Look at it that way. Think of it that way. And on that race you are called, and it's marked out before you. And you have to stay within that race. But the cool thing about it is the perseverance. right? It's that 22 mile, at the 24 mile where you've given up and your body's broken down and you can't go beyond that and you persevere through. I want the church, I want these young people to see that we are a church that perseveres. That when we're faced with the opposition of the town, that we are going to fight that fight and we're going to persevere through that. When the roof breaks and it leaks and we're in trouble, that they see that we didn't just give up, that we fixed everything that was broken. We righted every wrong that we could. We have persevered through craziness, through storms, through hostile people, through everything that we come up. I want them to see that we have persevered through as a church. That when an obstacle comes my way, it was either we remove it or we go around it. That's what I want them to see. I want to pass down a church that is pure. I want to pass down a church that perseveres, that faces their challenges head on. And we pull together as a church. I love two things. Well, I love a lot of things. Two things I'm thinking of right now. Tug of war. I love watching tug of war. I love it. And I love horse pulls. I love the horse pulls. I don't watch them much, but when I get to an exhibition ground and the horses are pulling, and they start to dig in, man, it's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing when you see two horses pulling together, and they can't pull that weight, and they pull it. Because you know their heart, right? And tug of war. We used to watch some team, I think they were from Pictou. Man, they had all the same jackets on them. These were professional men. They had the Dalton boys. I remember their names, Dalton. I don't know why. Runs my name. Rings a bell in my head. Dalton boys. And they were just fishermen and farmers. And they used to practice. They had a tripod set up with a Volkswagen. And they would pull the Volkswagen up. That's how they would practice. And I mean, I know you all watch tug of war, but sometime you get a chance, watch a professional tug of war. When they move, and they all move like one, and they flip to go pulling, and they flip over and they start leaning and going that way, it's an amazing thing. So when I think about our church, and I think about the race that's marked out for us, I think of an obstacle course. I'm not thinking of a 400-meter track or a 1,000-meter track. I'm thinking of an obstacle course. And I think we run that race with perseverance, and we face that head on. And that's the kind of church I want to lead. The other thing I want to leave our church is the fact that we fix our eyes on Jesus, who is the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. You know, this is not my vision. This was not my idea. This was his. And when I got up in the morning, I said, Jesus, what would you have us do? And that's what I went and did. And that's what we continue to do. Because I keep wanting to fix my eyes on Jesus and what he would have us to do. I'm not interested in doing this my way and going about it with my understanding, but I want to teach people as they come into our church, and I keep picking on you guys. Thank you for coming, because you didn't show up today. I'd be picking on a little fellow back there. But I want to pass down to them the idea that we always look to Jesus for our direction. That we weren't interested in what the next church down the road was doing. We're not interested in what they did in Montreal or Toronto or any place else. That when we looked what God would have us to do, we looked up, not around. That's the kind of church I want to lead. I want to leave a church where people go, well, man, I tell you, he wasn't the brightest guy on the face of the earth, but he knew how to follow Jesus. He learned to fix his eyes. Do you know what they say when you're going down the road and a car is coming towards you? Do you know what you're supposed to do besides scream? Don't look at the car coming towards you. That's a hard thing to do. Don't look at the car coming towards you. You guys need to hear this because you may be driving someday. Look for an escape route and head that way. Because if you look to the car coming towards you, you'll be drawn into it like a magnet. Turn your head, find a path, and go to it. And that's what you're supposed to do. We're to fix our eyes on Jesus, and like the horses, to put the blinders on, they do that so they don't get spooked, and they only have one thing, man, they're going straight ahead. I watched a guy learning to plow for the first time. He was a homesteader. I don't know what I was watching it on or how I got to see this, but he started to plow down the field for the first time, plowing up the field. And he got back and looked at his row, and his row was like this. And he did everything good. So he said to his son, "Son," he said, "go stand down at the end of the field." He plowed to his son. And he plowed the straightest row you could ever imagine, because he had something point to fix his eyes on. And we need that. Now, you just don't need it in your life. You need it every day. Every day that you've got to get up, you have to fix your eyes on Jesus. Right? When the wife is rattling on you, the husband or boyfriends, you need to fix your eyes on Jesus, the perfecter of your faith. He's the one that's pulling you in and pulling you along. People keep thinking that I can't do this, I can't be the Christian, I can't be this, I can't be that, I can't do this, I can't do that. And so often we are so into the flesh when it comes to the work of Jesus that we don't forget that He is the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. It's Him. It's Him that's bringing it. I have got to this spot because I did nothing. If I'd done anything that is of any value to it, I was obedient and I kept my eyes fixed on Him. Because without that, I would never have been here. I would never have been in this position. I would never have been able to do this if I kept thinking about what I could do that would be more comfortable, what I could do that would make me more money, what I could do that would make me more famous. I could do stuff, I could take this stuff and I could go be a motivational speaker and I could make big bucks doing that, maybe. But as long as you learn to fix your eyes, when our kids grow up in our church and we're all but gone, or Connie and Lynn's pushing Steve and I in wheelchairs to the food bank to hand out stuff, I want our kids to go, hey, let's get together, let's fix our eyes on Jesus, and let's see where we're going to take this big boat. That's what we have to do. And you have to show them that. Rather than always arguing in the flesh, show them I'm going to fix my eyes on Jesus, I'm going to solve the problem. You know, it's not a, rather than arguing over a problem, let's pray for a solution. Let's not rather try to blame whose fault it was. Why don't we just pray for a solution to the problem? It don't matter at this point whose problem it is. I can put energy into creating more of a problem or solving the problem. Which way am I going to expend my energy? I can perpetuate the fight, or I can pray for a solution. Let's end the fight and get it done. You broke something? Did you learn a lesson? Well, let's fix it. Do we do something stupid in the church? Whose fault is it? Does it matter? It does to me, because then I'm guiltless. I got no. That's good. No, that's not the way it works. Got a problem in the church? Let's solve it. Let's fix it. By fixing our eyes on Jesus, we'll solve every problem that you have. But we're serving the wrong Jesus. For the joy. Now, I want you to get this. Because we have become people of path of least resistance. We always want to take the easy way out. That's the flesh speaking all the time. I could go on a diet, but it's easier to eat my way into satisfaction. I could go to the street, but it's easier to not go on the street and watch TV. I could read my Bible, but it's easier to be entertained by the ball game. I could do a lot of things, but it's easier to always take the path of least resistance, because you all deserve a break. And it's interesting that usually happens around things that God wants us to do. I'm busy, I'm tired, I had a hard day today. That's usually the way, I come home at night and I go, it would be easier, because we had 4 children, and it was, back then it was like prayer meeting on Wednesday night, there was Bible study usually on Monday night, and then there was something on Friday night for the youth, and we had to get there. And I would work 8 hours a day, and I would come home, and I would be tired, and the easiest thing to do would be not to do anything. Because I'm tired. I worked hard. I deserve a break. Kids don't need to go to church today. We're going to take them somewhere else. Kids don't need to go tonight because we're going to do something else. And so often, parents take their kids on places and allow them excuses not to go to church. And then they get a little bit older than you guys don't bother going to church because Mom said we didn't have to go because it's great-grandma's birthday. And so we always made excuses. But listen to what this says. But for the joy. And I want you to get what that means. Come on now, read this with me. But for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. I mean, read that to yourself. Go ahead. Read it again. Read it one more time. Does anybody think that's joyful? Does anybody think that that's a joy ride? Can't wait till it happens to us. But for the joy that was set before him. When he looked at where he was, when he said he gave up, when you look at Philippians 2, thought it robbery to be equality with God, humbled himself, came to earth, born as a baby, died not just death, but death on a cross, which is the worst form of dying. But he gave that up in order to do that because he looked at what he had. He looked what he had endured. And he looked what was going to get after that. And he said, I'll do it. He looked at the possibility of what going to the cross meant. And he says, count it all joy. All the things that go wrong with us, all the things that happen to us, we fret, we blame, and we argue over the things that happen to us. And what if there's purpose in that? What is there purpose in the pain that you're going through right now? You think that's crazy. Oh, there's purpose in my pain. That's just stupid. But what if there is? What if there's a reason that you're going through what you're going through? What if it's to bring attention to what's going on in your life? What if it's to bring attention to something that will avert something in the future? What if the pain that you're going through is to cause you to look inward to what's going on and then look outward how I can solve or fix or help somebody because of what I'm going through? What if what Paul said is counted all pure joy? What if that's what Paul meant? Was everything that I face, it don't matter because I'm going to a better place. It don't matter what I'm going through here. Oh yes, it does. Some of us have laid down such deep roots in this town that we just can't see beyond anything happening that would discourage that or make it easier. But what if all the pain and the suffering that you're going through really has purpose? What if it has meaning? What if the cross actually had meaning to it? Oh wait, it did. Scorned at shame. For the joy set him, scorning at shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. I want to hand down a church that understands the value of what Jesus did. That's what I want to hand down. I don't want people taking it for granted that my salvation was free. A lot of people in the 80s were talking like that. Free salvation. That's what we talked about in the 80s. It's free salvation. It's not free. It costs you everything. It costs you your life. You lay down your life for Jesus when you become a Christian. You become obedient to Him. You follow His every word. He has laid down a course for you. He has marked out a course that only for you. Each one of you sitting here has a course. He's marked it out for you. And it's the best course possible. Can you imagine? Can you imagine when my car breaks down and I have a choice between taking it to somebody who thinks he's a mechanic or taking it to a place where they actually work on those cars and have built those cars? Wouldn't I want to do that? Wouldn't I want to take my car to the place where I know it will get the absolutely perfect, because they invented that car. They made that car. I'm not talking about some crazy side grads who calls himself a Toyota dealership. I'm talking about going back to the factory and have those guys that put those stuff together and say, you know, rated not only in where they assemble it, but I mean the guys that made the motor And they say, what's wrong with their motor? He'll go, what's it doing? I'm going, it's going bang, bang, bing. He goes, that's that. I know that because I made that part. You need to fix that part. God has a purpose for you. And I know we like to be the master of our own ship. I know we like to put our hands on the wheel of her life and say, I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to make her see my way. I'm going to get my family to go what I'm thinking. And I'm going to press in, and I'm going to show them that this is the way to go. And listen to what happened with the 12. You know the 12 spies that went in? 10 of them said, we can't go in. We can't go in and see because they're scary people in there, and they got like crazy fortified cities. We can't go in. And 2, so we can do this. The mass of voting isn't always right. Just because more people say yes don't mean it's right. Just because you win an argument don't mean you're right. And so I want to lay down a church that understands the value of what Jesus did. I want to leave a church the value of your salvation and what it costs. I want to leave a church that has passion. I want to leave a church that has passion that when they sense God pointing in a direction, that we put our hands to the plow and we go. I want to leave a church that has passion. I want to leave a church that understands that their salvation means everything to them. That's what it said. So a church that will not grow weary and lose heart. That's what he did for you. And finally, it goes down a little bit, and it says this. See that you do not refuse him who speaks. Every day you get up, God wants to speak to you. Every day. Every day. I know sometimes, especially when you're younger, the hardest thing to do is start to learn to get in tune with God. It's like trying to get in tune with Superman. You read about him in a comic strip, but how do I talk to him now? And a lot of times, some of the hardest things that we ever get to do as adults is learn how to tap into the Spirit and listen and hear. A lot of times we just go on instinct and common sense, and sometimes that's not enough. And so learn to hear God's voice. If you guys learn anything at your age, learn to hear God's voice. You can hear it. It's not crazy. And people say, oh, he's speaking to me. But learn to listen and do not refuse him when he speaks. A lot of people have gone down some crazy roads in their life because they refuse to listen to the one that was speaking. But if I leave anything behind, learn to hear the voice of God. Let us show our children that it's not my opinion, it's God's opinion. I listen to what God says, and that's what we do. Jesus said, I don't do anything unless I hear from the Father. And a lot of times, we got so much religion in us that we just think we're going to go this way or we're going to go that way. But we're not listening to what God has said to us. But we need to listen to what God has said. Not what I did. And it's hard because there's a lot of stuff that floats around in your head in a run of a day. And what we've got to do is learn to hear from God. Let me just close with this. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire. He's talking about the Old Testament. That's what he's talking about. To darkness, gloom, and storm. And that's how they kind of understood God back in the Old Testament. He was this guy who created fire and thunder and all kinds of stuff. That's the way they understood him. To a trumpet blast or to such a voice speaking words that no one who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them. In other words, they heard God's voice so heavy that they begged, I don't want to hear it no more. That's what the Old Testament was all about. Because they could not bear what was commanded. Even an animal was to touch the mountain, it was to be stoned. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I am trembling with fear. That was Moses who stood at the burning bush, who went up on the mountain and saw the face of God. And that was Moses who said that there are times I just trembled at the God of the Old Testament when I came into his presence. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I'm trembling. Well, listen to this now. This is the church that I want to leave behind. That they have an understanding of this, that they grasp what it means. But you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly. To the church of the firstborn, to the names are written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, to the sprinkling of blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, how much less will we, if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? What will our end be? We come to a God who loves us, who allows us to enter into his presence in worship, who senses his spirit when it falls on us, to be directed to see the answers to prayer that we've seen in the last 4 or 5 weeks, really coming on stronger every day. And we get to see his hand. People say, well, I don't believe in God because I can't see him. I said, well, you can't see him because you're looking in the wrong place, because I see his hand every day. I want a church to see, I want our young people to see that we see the hand of God. We see his spirit. This is not opinion. I'm not interested in opinion. I'm interested in God's spirit. I'm interested in what God would have for us. I would be interested in seeing a church left behind that when I die, that there is no break in the action. There's no burp in the plan. There's no, now what are we going to do? Well, this was all that. I built a church prior to this that I think was kind of stuck on that. And it never got out of Drydenville. And I think it still struggles a little bit today with that, because I just didn't do the right things. And now when I'm thinking ahead and I'm thinking what we're building here, I'm thinking 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, maybe I'm thinking ahead to tomorrow, I don't know. But I'm saying that we have to be responsible for what we're leaving behind. You parents have got to be responsible for what you're leaving behind. Us as leaders in this church have got to be responsible for leaving us behind. The opposition that we are now facing in Truro means that we can't sit idly by and assume that our church is going to be okay if we don't do something about it today. If we don't stand up as a unit and survive what's being against us, we will see the same things happen in the town of Truro that's been happening all over this world that we would pray would never come to Truro. But it's going to come to Truro because we're going to make it come to Truro, because we're going to take our ground. We're going to inflict persecution on us because we've got to take a stand. We can no longer sit idly by and think that the government's going to protect us. We can no idly by sit and think that the town council is going to look after our rights. Just so you know, you have no more rights. Oh, I didn't break your heart. But you don't have that anymore. The national director said, and I'll try to quote him, so everybody was boo-hooing because we lost our grants from the government. Everybody said, oh, he went, good. About time. The government is not our sugar daddy. They owe us nothing, and we should expect nothing from them. We shouldn't expect anything. And he said, I'll be glad when there's no more taxes, when there's no tax receipts, because we can sever it once and for all. We want nothing from them, we expect nothing, and we're doing it. He said, then we'll find out who the big boy tithers are. That's our national director. Except he said it with an Irish accent, which I can't do. But having said that, we need to leave something, and we need to leave it healthy. In order to do that, we've got to be hard at work. We've got hard at work. If you're not plugged in, you want to be plugged in, let's get this game going. Like I always say, man, you got to armor up because we're going to war. You got no armor on, can't help it. Put it on, be in God's Word, be in prayer, be in communion with God. Figure out how to do that. Everybody does something different. Shauna, it's the jacuzzi. I know, because it runs for 3 and 4 hours. You know? wherever your quiet space is, whatever's best for you works best. If you're not doing that, you're not armoring up. You're not getting what I'm saying. I'm saying armor up. And how you do that is get in communion with God and put on everything that He has for you. Let's pray. Father, thank you, Lord, for this day. God, thank you that we realize that this is not just about today. This is not just about this church that just blossomed out of nowhere, just happened along the way. And it is just free-flowing down the road, and we just jumped in, and we're having such a wonderful time that we just assume that everything's going to work out, and we're just going to just follow along. Well, the truth of the matter is that there has to be direction, and there has to be responsibility and accountability. And that's where we come in as a church, not just me as a leader. But what about the other leaders that are within this church? They have to step up, and they have to realize that we don't want to be ensnaring anybody that comes into this church. We don't want to be a cause of anything that's not being perpetuated for you, Jesus. We don't want to go anywhere that we're not supposed to or say anything that we weren't told. We want to be exactly, God, the church that you have planted in this town. Pure, crazy word, perfect, even crazier word. Can that be? Absolutely. Absolute. There is nothing that we shouldn't be doing that we can't stop doing. Or anything that we're doing that we should stop. We can do all of these things. We can be exactly the church that God you desire. And all we have to be is willing. Do not refuse him who speaks. Now some of you have been battling things maybe in your heart about different things that's going on in your life. We just pray, Lord, that every time that we get to a crossroad in our life, we look up and not around. When we think of the things in our lives that are causing us to stumble, how much more is it going to cause our kids to stumble? When we can't get our relationships right, how are they ever going to get theirs right? We've got to stop this idea, Lord, that everything's going to work out. And we're just going to fade off into the night. It's hard to stand some days. God, you call us to stand. You call us to stand in our families. You call us to stand for what is right in our families. You call for us to stand what is right in our town and in our church. You call us to this. We're not pacifists. We're warriors. We got to get this mentality of that we're just going to lay down to everything that happens and just accept it as, you know what, not on my watch. It is not going to happen on our watch. Though the world lays down, we're going to stand. We will be found standing when the end comes. That's what we need to be. We need to learn to stand our ground. Take back the land that was taken. We're not waiting till the end comes, Lord. We're going to be working like you're coming back tomorrow. Blessed is he who, when the master comes, find the servants doing the work. Not knowing the work, not used to doing the work, doing the work. God, help us to be that church. Help us to hand down the church, Lord, that you want in this town. In Jesus' name, amen. Shake hands, be friendly. You are dismissed.